Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words. Today we are playing some Premodern. I record my videos in advance and the day this is coming out is going to be the Legacy BNR update, and I don't want to make content that isn't going to be relevant after the BNR update, so I'm playing some Premodern, which is the other format I like to play on the channel. There might be a couple more Premodern videos this week because I have to record in advance to make my job work and keep the content coming for you. So we're playing some Premodern today. I will probably have a reaction video to the BNR update that comes out like a couple of hours after this, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Anyway, today we're playing Psychatog, aka Dr. Teeth. This is basically a blue-black control deck that wins with Psychatog as a sort of almost combo-like piece, because by the time we get to playing our Psychatog out, we're going to have so many cards in our graveyard and stuff that this can one-shot our opponent quite often. This particular list comes from friend of the channel, Neon Mushroom, who makes some excellent Premodern content. I highly recommend checking out Phyrexian Furnace, which is a YouTube channel that has all of his Premodern content on. I enjoy watching him play Psychatog there, so we're playing some Psychatog ourselves. The deck is filled with basically card selection, card advantage, and interaction. So we've got things like Duress, other Ghastly Demise, that's really what we're dipping into black for. Then our counter magic suite involves a foil, which is one of the playable free counter magics in Premodern. We've got ourselves some good old-fashioned Counterspell and Force Spike, and Circular Logic, which is very good once you have the Psychatog down. Card advantage wise, we've got Gush, Battle Fiction, and Accumulated Knowledge. So hoping to generate a lot of extra resources, which then can go into the Tog later on. We've got Intuition, which can sometimes just find us a Tog when we need it, or get a spread of things that can be quite useful. Or sometimes, you know, just go and get 3 counter spells when you really need one in response to something. There's also a Powder Keg in here. Because we are blue-black, we can't deal with all permanent types that well, so artifacts can be annoying for us. This can deal with them if need be. And there is a one-off Wonder, which we can obviously discard to the Psychatog to give our Psychatog flying and get that hit in. There's a few Portents here to smooth things out alongside some Impulses. That's sort of our selection element. Our mana base is pretty island heavy because we're playing Gush and Foil, so we've got 10 islands, we've got fetch lands, and then a few underground rivers to sort of supplement our swamps. Sideboard-wise, it's sideboard cards. We've got Engineer Play, one of the best black sideboard cards. Zombie Infestation, this is part of our backup plan for when the Psychatog isn't necessarily going to be that good. We can have something like a Zombie Infestation, which allows us to pitch cards and get value still. We've got Hydroblast and Annuls, and we've got some Graveyard Hate in the Furnaces, and then we've got a couple of Tsabo's Web for manland decks that we don't really want to tangle with, because we don't want to have to spend our real spell cards on our opponent's lands that are also doing double duty by being lands and kind of spells when they're creatures. So Tsabo's Web can blank that for us. And there's a one-off Vendetta in here, which you can board in against things like Goblin Lackey. So that is the list we're playing today. Remember to like and subscribe. I've got lots of other Premodern content on the channel. This format is great. Check out Phyrexian Furnace and Neon Mushroom channels on YouTube. Okay, let's get stuck in with some Psychatog. There's still time to take advantage of 3-for-1 Trading's early Black Friday sale. It runs until 12th of November and is the perfect way to level up your collection. With the code BF25, you can get 5% off and free worldwide shipping on orders over €300 or dollars. It's a perfect time to buy into Premodern or add to your legacy collection. High-end singles, full sets, sealed products, and even gaming supplies are part of the promotion. Click on the link in the description of this video to find out more and place your order. Avatar: The Last Airbender, 3-for-1 Advent Calendar, 3-for-1 Chaos Draft, and event tickets are excluded from this promotion. Alright, Island Portent, that's a keep for me. We do have 3 of them, which is a lot, but we should be able to find whatever we need. The format gives us a reasonable amount of breathing room. We know the first Portent is pretty much just looking for lands, so we can happily fire this one off. This is kind of like Ponder, but we can tag our opponent sometimes. Okay, we're going to... We don't really need this Smother or the Swamp just yet, but I guess we could need it for the following turn. So we probably want to stack it in a way that we have access to Smother and Swamp next turn. We don't want our Smother to be Duress potentially, so I guess we go Island on the bottom, then the Smother to hide that from hand disruption, and then we put the Swamp into our hand. We draw a card at the beginning of our opponent's upkeep, so it's a slightly bit different to Ponder, but it is certainly close enough. And now I don't think we want to Portent, we just want to hold up Accumulated Knowledge or Impulse. We're happy to draw the island, so I'd rather Accumulated Knowledge here than cast the Impulse, because we could skip over things just to get an island that we know is on top already anyway. Our opponent's going to be thinking about things like Mana Leak that we could deploy here. Oath of Lieges, this is going to be a reader for me. 2 mana enchantment at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player chooses a target player who controls more lands than they do and is their opponent. The first player may search the library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield. So it's kind of like bad land tax. But it goes onto the battlefield. Okay. Sure. So they're going to get this, but it's effectively just going to be a rampant growth, and I'm okay with my opponent having a rampant growth. I'm not going to stop making land drops. Force Spike is certainly interesting. I think we're probably looking at casting this Portent. I don't know what of these we need, but these are good cards. So I think we put Psychatog on the bottom, and then the Powder Keg, and then the Gush, and we'll just put the Gush into our hand. So we're holding up Force Spike and Smother for this turn, and then we can just impulse. Well, we don't even want to impulse necessarily unless we need specific things. So we draw our Gush here. I could Gush here and stop them getting a land, but I honestly don't care that much about them having a land. I'd rather have our mana in play. Now, I'm not really sure what our opponent's deck is. I haven't seen this card before, so I'm not really sure the play patterns we can expect here. But it's given our opponent a rampant growth. Are they just playing a Savannah Lions? That isn't very exciting. Was this Inspired Hero? Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. So this can deal with the Psychatog later on. The question is, how good do we think this Force Spike is going to be moving forwards? And I believe the answer to that is not very. I think I'm just going to Force Spike this, because I think this card is going to be pretty dead with the Oath of Lieges in play. So now we get to Oath of Lieges, our opponent. So what have we got on top of our library? We've got a Psychatog and a Powder Keg. Would I like a Powder Keg here? It comes at the cost of Smother this turn, but I think Powder Keg is good. So I'm going to say no to this trigger. And then we can just drop the Powder Keg here. I guess we could Portent first. We know there's a Tog on top, but if we can find a land here, we don't get it in play straight away. The Force Spike is something we can use. We say, okay, so we'll put the Psychatog on the bottom, then the island, because you don't get to draw it until next turn, and then the Force Spike. And then we can choose if we're going to hold up this Force Spike, or are we just going to play this Powder Keg. So Force Spike and Smother versus Powder Keg. I think the Powder Keg can stay in hand for a little bit, and we can hold up the Smother or the Force Spike. This also gives us the ability to clear the top of our deck using this impulse if we want to. I know we said Force Spike isn't going to find many targets because our opponent's an Oath of Lieges deck over here, but they do have some disappearing lands. Alright, I'm happy just to take 2 here. We've got plenty of life to work with. Our opponent's going to have probably Lightning Bolts and Swords to Plowshares in their deck. Tari Priest, protection from red. That is not the colour that we care about. So do I need to impulse here? We have a Psychatog on top of our library and an island. I want the island anyway, so I think we are just going to draw this island and deploy it. Now we get to play this Powder Keg out whilst holding up Smother / Force Spike. I'm okay to impulse over the Psychatog. We're not necessarily in the phase of the game where we need a Psychatog. Enlightened Tutor. You got it. What are you going to put on top? It could be something that I'm unprepared for. Well, we'll see. It's a Seal of Cleansing. Okay, that's not a big deal. They can blow up our Powder Keg. But this is most likely just going to be trading with a Savannah Lions or a Soltari Priest anyway. So just trading with a different 2-drop is fine. We're just going to use our life total as a resource here. We don't really care about their creatures that much. Like, we can smother one of these at the end step if we feel the need. They're not even playing out the Seal of Cleansing. Alright, let's just smother this guy. So I would rather take the damage and then be ready in case our opponent has something better. So now we have a Powder Keg that can blow up their guy. We could just deploy a Psychatog here, which is quite likely to hit into a plow. But what we really want to do here is we float blue, and then we Gush. So we get to play one of these out anyway. So we draw an AK that can draw us 2. I think I'm okay to play this Tog, using the 2 blue floating and the black. So we have Gush if we want to just try and dig into a actual factual counterspell, because we're obviously running counterspell as a card that we can draw to, but it's only 2 hits and does send us back a bit. A Fireblast. Discarding 2 lands here. That's very interesting. We can just make this larger if we want to anyway. Oh, I misclicked and hit our accumulated knowledge. That was a massive misclick there. I meant to hit the other Portent. So we're just going to make our creature live through the Fireblast. I was supposed to do that and leave just the accumulated knowledge in. So they're going to get a land here. So this is drawing them more cards than I would necessarily have expected it to. But they did have a double gemstone mine draw. So many resources here. Because they also, like, they've done some real card disadvantage of, like, the Fireblast and the Enlightened Tutor. Both of which make them go down cards. Alright, I can just take 2 from this. I want to pressure them into using the seal. Goblin Bombardment. Okay, that does tell us a little bit about what our opponent's up to. Let's just take out this Savannah Lions now. Do I care about this Goblin Bombardment? They've got Seal of Cleansing and Mystery card in hand. Right, let's Impulse here. Yes, Fact or Fiction, please. That card is pretty busty. We get a free land here if we want one. Take another island here. We just nip in for 1 with the Tog. We have to decide if we want our opponent to get an extra land or if we want extra land drops. They could just sacrifice this at end of turn anyway by tapping it. So I think I am just going to play out the island. It does give our opponent a free Oath of Lieges trigger, but our opponent doesn't really have much going on. We can float blue and Gush quite happily in response to anything that we care about. I feel massively in control of this game. I don't really know everything that's going to be in our opponent's deck though, so there are definitely ways that we can get blown out by stuff I'm unfamiliar with. Ensnaring Bridge, you say? Right, I'm willing to Gush here. Okay, we've got a Boomerang, that's fine. I will use the floating mana here just to accumulate knowledge, which should be drawing us 2 cards, but I made a mistake before. Right, so we Boomerang this. We untap. So now we're just getting more and more resources out here because we bounced some lands. So the Gush into the Oath of Lieges is pretty gross. Okay, so we can play out a land here. So how much damage do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we don't have lethal this turn, but we're not a million miles away. We do need to Duress right now to get rid of that Ensnaring Bridge. That's the reason we made this play. So that can go away. And then we just have a Counterspell we're sat on. We don't really need to do very much. Right, we've got Counterspell if they play anything. If they don't, we can just go Fact or Fiction, draw a million cards. Gitu Slinger. 2 damage to any target. This is... Oh, they put the Seal of Cleansing on top and shuffled it away. That's with their Oath of Lieges trigger. That's an important thing that we nearly missed there. So this will deal 2 damage to any target. We can... Do we care about this? I don't think I care about this. Are you going to point at my Psychatog? Or just eat some cards from the graveyard? They're going to the Dome. Sure. We'll cast one of these multiple Fact or Fictions we have. Alright, opponent. How would you like to arrange this pile? It's good. They're giving me the Gush. Is it going to be Gush versus? I will choose pile 1. If you're going to give me 4 cards, I will take 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands. Yeah, so I guess we can get another land out here if we want it. So I think step 1 here is to cast this Accumulated Knowledge. Okay, so let's just calculate. Our opponent has no cards in hand. They can ping once with this. This is only when it enters, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So we just have the win here, right? We can Intuition, use Wander, and then other stuff, it doesn't really matter. Just some lands is fine. Like, there's probably an optimal thing that we do draw there, but our opponent has no cards in hand. We're about to win the game. And then what we do is we just pitch our entire hand to Psychatog, and then we pitch our entire graveyard apart from Wander to Psychatog, and we fly over for like 20 odd damage. That's like the sort of combo-y side of things. Feels like we want to be able to attack our opponent's creatures with this, and it does seem like if they're running Enlightened Tutor, we're probably going to want these Annuls. And we've seen red stuff. How much into the red are they? We only saw Fireblast, but they probably have Red Blast of their own, so I think there's an argument for these cards. The Engineered Plague might be okay. They look like they had a bunch of little creatures, so there's lots of stuff that maybe is okay, but we just don't have enough information, and maybe we even want the Zombie Infestation. So I think the real thing to do here is decide what we don't want to do. I think Force Spike against all their little their little spells, we're not going to be like Force Spike and Savannah Lions very often. I think I'd rather have something like a Vendetta, so we can swap that out. Ghastly Demise obviously looks pretty good here. We need the Duress Boomerang plan to deal with some ensnaring bridges that our opponent has shown us that they have. Do we even need Intuition here? It can bail us out of certain situations, I suppose, because it is a tutor, so it can just say we want something, but we can't tutor for the Boomerang, which is the thing we're most likely to want to tutor for. So I guess we take out an Intuition, and that probably gives us access to maybe a Zombie Infestation. We can probably beat a lot of their creatures in play. And then we have to decide about these Annuls and these Blue Blasts. So I don't think... I guess we still want the Duresses, right? But do we want 4? Maybe we could trim down to 3 and we're just going to combo them with the Boomerang. So we just have like 3 of those. That gets us 1 of the Annuls. Because most of the time we're going to be trying to Duress Like, the Duress is going to be hitting the same stuff as the Annul. The only times, I guess, where it's going to be different for us is if we've Boomerang and we can just make sure it's gone. So maybe we could just do a 2-and-2 split of Annuls and Duresses, and that might end up working well for us. And then we get one more of these cards, so we can have this Annul. We could go back to having 3 Duresses here. We could have like a Miser's Hydroblast, or we could just have a Miser's Engineer Plague, which could be useful if they got a lot of guys. We saw 2 guys of different creature types. I'm not sure this is going to be an Engineer Plague matchup. So I think we're just going to have the 3rd Annul in and see how this looks, and then reappraise it for game 3. I've not played this deck before, so I'm not going to be 100% doing the best lines all the time. But that's how we learn and do stuff, isn't it? So a Gush that will presumably work at some point. We have a removal spell that is going to be difficult to turn on, potentially. We have a Zombie Infestation, which I'm not really in the market for right now. The Psychatog also, like, we kind of just want to stabilize the game, and then we want these sorts of things. I do like the Counterspell, but this hand is going to be very slow to interact if our opponent's doing like aggressive things. I think we can do better than this. This is more what I sort of want to be doing. So I assume we're going to make land drops. I'd rather play on basics just in case there's like Wasteland or Ruination or something weird over there. So we're just going to draw a bunch of cards. Our opponent's going to beat us down a little bit, and that's going to be okay. They're not even beating us down at all. That's even better. I will play out this island and pass. I don't think there's anything that punishes us for this Polluted Delta not being played out straight away. But if we draw a swamp, I would very much like to have access to another island with this. So this is a 2-mana 4/4. Can't attack if defending player controls an untapped land. Can't block if you control an untapped land. Okay. So this is just trying to stop us from having counterspells up, which is perfectly reasonable. Alright, I think I'm just going to accumulate knowledge now then, and just take my 4 damages. Like, we don't have a counterspell anyway, we're not holding anything up. This is just going to be a creature that doesn't get to attack. Oh wait, have I misread this the wrong way around? Can't attack if defending player controls an untapped land. Oh, I've read this the wrong way around. Because I just assumed it would be the worst case scenario for us, and then I've done some horrible reading there. So we just took 4 damage for no reason there. That is... Why is this card in their deck? That card seems very bad against us. Okay, so we're just not going to take 4 damage from that guy now. That was very loose of me. My brain just read it the wrong way around, even though I was reading it out. That's interesting. So this isn't something that they've boarded in for us. This is just what their deck is trying to do. All right, we'll take some damages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to go up to 7 cards, so that's fine. We just AK for 2 here. Are we in playing Psychatog and doing stuff with it time? I don't necessarily think we are. We just play out this land for now. Like, Psychatog can check this Savannah Lions, but it's going to cost us some other bits and pieces along the way. I think we just pass that over and just hold up a bunch of draw effects. Right, we'll take 2. Imagine if we were on 4 life higher than we are now. Need for speed. Sacrifice a land to give stuff haste. Sure. You got it. I'm going to cast an Impulse. Duress, foil, Gush. I think we just want the foil here, just as a little bit of extra insurance against something spooky. And then it's time to get a Swamp, and we're going to cast another Impulse. Duress, Counterspell. I guess we just take a Counterspell. It covers everything. So now we can play Tog holding up Counterspell. And we also have the foil. And we've got Gushes and all sorts of stuff. So our opponent is in a lot of trouble. Swords to Plowshares. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. If we foil, then we still hold up Counterspell. Opponent's got 2 cards in hand. Is this the time that we need to be doing stuff with our Psychatog or not? We have so many cards available. I guess step 1 is to just bounce these 2 islands and then see what we're drawing towards. Wait, is that going to leave us discarding there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we go down to 5, but then we draw 4, so we go up to 9. And then we can foil, though, and have more cards to know what we're doing with the foil. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so I will foil this. I will pitch, I think it's just island. Is it Island Portent? Or is it Island? I think it's just 2 islands. Okay, so we've got 9 cards in our graveyard. So that is 4.5 damage. Each card in our hand is worth 1.5 damages. 3, 6, 9. We haven't got enough to kill our opponent. But it's not a million miles away. I'll trade. I'll just put this. Oh, sorry, it won't be trade. I will block this and I will pump my guy. Just get rid of a couple of islands from the graveyard just to pump the Psychatog. We're not going to tap out this counterspell in case there's an instant speed spell we want to interact with. Ghastly Demise. So this can't block if you control an untapped land. So they would have to tap all of their lands to try and block with this. We could just Ghastly Demise this and move on with life. Just start getting the damages in. I think that's fine. Place one out. So let's just do a quick damage check. 3, 6, 7.5, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're not quite at lethal, but we're sort of getting towards it. I'm going to hold up Annul and Counterspell this turn cycle. Next turn, if we don't draw a land, then we're in a great position to Gush. Something big. What do they have? I don't know. There's a Battlefield Forge, and they're just passing it over. Let's float a couple of blue, and we're going to Gush here. Pay out his land, and then we can Portent. We could Portent, or we could play Powder Keg. I think the Powder Keg is the more efficient use of our mana. I'm going to go for being efficient here. We don't even care about losing this Psychatog because we found another one. So because our opponent has red removal most likely in their deck, we've already seen a Fireblast. We want to be able to have the ability to pay a load of mana. Okay, just Fireblasting our face. 2 cards left in hand. That's fine. Because our opponent has like red removal and stuff, we want, when the turn we want to just go with everything so that we can go over the top of any burn spells. Whereas if we do little bits of damage, then we expose ourselves to getting killed. We have a Smother for this, so we'll just Smother this. I guess they can sacrifice some lands, but we can just let the Powder Keg clean this up as well. Sure, I'm okay with that. Not the most efficient use of our mana this turn. I will play out an island. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand over there. Let's pop your Grim Lavamancer and see what you do with it, opponent. Or you can sacrifice a land to give your guy haste. You can ping me for 2, or you can ping my Psychatog for 2, and I just exile cards from my graveyard. But we have interaction for whatever your final piece is going to be. Going to my face. So a little damage calculation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Not lethal. I think I'm just going to hold up Annul or Counterspell, Smother. There's a bunch of useful things that we can do here. Like if we find a Gush, then we have lethal damage with like Counterspell backup and all sorts. Another land. Do we even play the land out? It allows us to cast more of our spells, so I guess that makes sense. So we have Annul, Smother, and Counterspell up. And Boomerang if we want that, but we can't do Boomerang and Counterspell. If that was an island, that would have been a better draw for us. Let's see what our opponent's doing. Are they hard casting a Fireblast? They are indeed. So I believe I want to Counterspell this one. So we're a little bit shields down, but we still have the Annul, which deals with the Ensnaring Bridge, if that's what they have. Accumulated Knowledge. I think... Well, this kind of has to hit us an island for us to feel 100% safe. What are the chances of this hitting us an island? They could Fireblast in response. No, they can't Fireblast. They don't have Fireblast mana. Alright, we're just going to try and draw 3 cards. If we find an island or a Gush, it's okay. We didn't find either of those things. Sorry, that's a Gush. It was the wrong art. So we go to combat, and I believe this is lethal. I'll discard this Wander. I'll discard this Psychatog. I will float 2 blue and Gush. So this is the more combo-y side of what the deck can do in terms of like we just popping off with a bunch of stuff. Just get rid of some cards from our graveyard. Not the Wander though. This doesn't really matter, to be fair. Opponent's got 2 cards in hand. I don't think we're in trouble here. They have 1 Hydroblast one Pyroblast available, but we have that covered. Alright, we managed to win the match. We did make a misstep by misreading this Veteran Brawlers, or misunderstanding it. I did technically read it correctly. My brain just read it the other way around. Alright, let's go to round number 2. Interesting hand. We have this Duress, but this Circular Logic is basically nothing. This foil is nothing based on the 4 Polluted Delta, so I think we actually have to mulligan this. Okay, I like this hand more. I don't think we need a Psychatog just yet. Like, Psychatog doesn't do anything until the mid stage of the game anyway, so I'd much rather just have cards that do stuff until that point. Because when we're playing all of our selection and a card advantage, we're going to find a Psychatog when we need one. Sphere of Resistance. That is not what we want to see on turn 1 with our deck. Okay. Might be a bit of an uphill battle, this one. We also don't want to see a Wander this early on because it doesn't do anything. Okay. I think we are in a lot of trouble already. Wasteland is at least not very good against us. We have 3 targets for this in our deck. Counterspell that we can't cast, but we can cast this Portent, so let's do that. I think our opponent might be on Mud. So I want to draw this land, and then we can just... I guess we have to choose one of these cards to put in our hand for later, if we keep this Portent. So I think we just bottom the Circular Logic, put the Intuition on top of it, And then we're going to use the impulse to push through the card we don't want on top. If we don't have to counterspell, which we might have to do. So the sphere resistance is obviously annoying for us, but at least we're not exposed to land destruction from our... Yeah, this definitely feels like a proper mud deck. I think this deck is hugely underrated. So Grafted Skullcap. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. So this gives us an out to their sphere resistance. We can bounce it with this trigger on the stack and they have to discard it. So that's quite nice for us. Which means we might end up drawing this Circular Logic. If we just have to counter one spell a turn, we're probably going to be in an okay spot for a while, to be honest. We'll see if we have to counter something here. But I guess if they make land drops in an annoying way for us. There's also how much we have to respect Ensnaring Bridge. Mindstone, that's fine. Winter Orb. I don't want to play against Winter Orb. That is not a thing that we want to do. So we don't get to do the Boomerang in response, because we can bounce the Skull Cap, if we want to. Not finding a land there is not a surprise, because we knew the Circular Logic was on top. So, there we go. It's just we had to counterspell instead of Intuition, so we didn't get to clear the Circular Logic. Now we can use this Circular Logic as a little Rune Snag style effect. So hopefully we don't have to interact with what our opponent's doing this turn. We need another mana for our Circular Logic down the stretch, but we can get there. Smokestack. They have so many permanents. I don't think we can let this resolve. Yikes. This is a matchup where having Annuls in is going to feel amazing. Alright, they only got one card that turn. Land. Give me a land. Not a land. A card that we don't really want to cast here. Okay. Just have one turn where you don't draw bangers, please, opponent. And then we can be friends. Alright, they're playing a Mishra's Factory. That's a win condition. It's going to slow down their mana production a little bit, but probably not much because they're just going to be drawing 2 cards and getting lands. Thran Dynamo. That is a card we don't actually care about. That's a nice change. We do have an interesting decision now. Are we going to bounce the Skull Cap so they're just drawing off the top, or do we bounce the Sphere Resistance so we can play multiple spells in a turn? It's actually like a really big deal here. If they're just drawing 1 card a turn, if we draw a land, that's okay. Alright, I think I'm gonna bounce the Skull Cap, and then they discard it to its own trigger. Land. Land. Come on, deck. I believe in you. If we draw a land here, then that play is going to feel really good. If we don't draw a land, then we're in a bit of trouble. Are we casting Accumulated Knowledge, or are we casting Portent? I think we're just casting Portent here, which is... Actually, did we just cast... No, we cast the Impulse. And then if we find a land, we still don't get to cast anything. But then we might be able to double spell the next turn. Yeah, I think that's... Oh, Fact or Fiction, would love one of those. And Accumulated Knowledge, we can draw many cards, but we just need to make land drops. I think I'm going to go and get this Polluted Delta so that we at least have access to a Psychatog. Because our opponent is hurting their own life total with these Ancient Tombs. Their deck's got a lot of mana in it, so we're hoping that they brick for a turn or two, maybe get in some Mishra's Factory beats, and that's okay with us. Looks like they've drawn something. Oh no, they're just cracking their Mindstone. Cursed Scroll. Oh, that's pretty good. That's not really something they get to use alongside Mishra's Factory and deploy spells. So if they get a turn where they're not deploying anything, it's going to be harder for them to Curse Scroll us because they have 2 cards in hand if they don't play anything right now. I guess they can just ease off on doing factory stuff for a bit. Okay, so the Curse Scroll might be something they use in their upkeep. I'm happy to draw a land here, so I'm not going to crack this Polluted Delta. Would like to find... Honestly, we might... I was going to say we might be doing Wonder stuff right now. But we need another land for that. So we can Gush here. So we can go blue, blue, Gush, and then try and cast something else. Sure, I think that's what we're doing. Gush still feels pretty good when you have to pay 1 mana for it. Okay, so you can play this one out. And we can go for a swamp here. We can play out the Psychatog. This will turn on our Circular Logics next turn. But it also means our opponent is in a bit of a bind here. Because they're on 12 life. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 damage. So we have lethal next turn if our opponent can't remove our Psychatog or stop us in some other way. Now they can Curse Scroll our Psychatog to force us to exile cards, but I think we still probably have enough damage. They've got 1 card in hand over there, and they're leaving it The thing to use. Interesting. Do I need this island in play right now? What is our plan? We're probably going to pay 2 mana for this Circular Logic when we discard it. Do we win without needing the Circular Logic? So this is 3 damage, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes, we do have enough damage. So I'm just going to discard this Wonder first. Like, we can make our opponent tap some resources down, but I don't think it matters here. Our opponent's probably just going to count the number of cards in our hand right now and realise they're dead. They don't really have colourless instant speed stuff. This isn't Legacy. There's no Kozilek's commands coming to ruin our day. Oh, we got GG. I thought that was a pretty good game, to be fair. We had some nice techie stuff where we bounced their grafted skullcap and stuff. So, Tsabo's Web seems good. The Annuls seem great. They haven't shown us Welder, but they probably have Welders in there somewhere. Zombie Infestation allows us to make creatures without paying mana, so I want that. So, Ghastly Demise not looking the most exciting. Probably still want a couple of Smothers if our opponent has access to Welder, though. Because they're probably going to have Crypts and stuff, so the Ghastly Demise isn't always going to be the most reliable thing. Gush is a turn 1 answer for some scary stuff here. I think Intuition, having to then play the Intuition for possibly more mana than it's normally costing us, or through a Winter Orb or something, and then having to do other bits and pieces just isn't really where I want to be. Do I like 4 spikes against a deck with a lot of mana? No, I do not. I like the Duresses and get them in early and do some stuff. The Boomerang and Powder Keg are essential. I think the way we're going to fight Welders is with Smothers rather than with Phyrexian Furnace. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct. I think it is because our opponent can manipulate their graveyard by having like things put into their graveyard at the time they want. Maybe Vendetta is actually slightly better because it's 1 mana and our life total is not really what's going to be under threat here. So the Wonder is fine. I think we still... Actually, if we're boarding out the Intuition, do we need to keep the Wonder? I don't think so. Although the flying 2/2s is kind of interesting. And then we still need 1 more cut here. Is it just an Impulse, I think? Something like that. Alright, we'll try this configuration and see how we go. I really like this Psychatog deck. A lot of my in-person friends aren't really a big fan of the Psychatog list. I think it's got a lot of interesting stuff going on, and drawing 1,000,000 cards doesn't feel bad. So, we have an emergency foil. I'd rather not use it like that. But Tsabo's Web is a pretty big card in this matchup. Shutting down Rishdam Ports and Wastelands and Mishra's Factories feels good. So I will keep this one. I would prefer one of these counterspells to be an Annul or this foil to be an Annul. But you got to do what you got to do. So there's a Port. That's one of the cards I'm very much looking to shut down. So they've got the Phyrexian Furnace, which is why we've got the backup plan. So we're going to play this island and pass. Our opponent's probably going to be thinking about Annul because it's a very common sideboard card. And obviously it's an absolute banger. But if they just tap us down here, that's not going to be ideal for us. Because they can also tap us down and then that allows them to resolve something the turn after without fear of counterspell. Dust Bowl. Alright, so we're losing our island for a turn here. A Polluted Delta. That's a difficult one for them to tap down, but do you think they're going to be tapping us down? I would like to have the island in hand for this foil, so we're going to leave this island in hand and play out the Polluted Delta. This does mean they're going to be able to clip something with this Phyrexian Furnace, but it's going to mean we're going to have access to blue-blue next turn, potentially. Well, I think next turn we're just going to slam this Tsabo's Web if our opponent's lands are tapped. Right, so they're playing a spell instead. It's going to be Smokestack, just Thran Dynamo. I don't think we're countering Thran Dynamo. It does give our opponent a lot of mana to work with, but I think we're just going to hit the payoffs rather than the mana. Tangle Wire. Ugh, not really wanting to play against that one. I think we go foil this, and we're going to pitch this island, obviously, and I think it has to be... It could be the swamp here. No, we're having to pitch this island, so we need this land. So I think it's the counterspell. I like the Zombie Infestation quite a lot in this matchup. Just in the way it plays out. Our opponent's deck doesn't necessarily like playing against just a bunch of dudes. Right, they're going to exile the bottom card of my graveyard. This turn should be pretty big. Factual Fiction, that will help later on down the line. Let's go for this Tsabo's Web. That's going to shut off 2 of my opponent's lands and gives us a redraw. 2 mana double sinkhole that cantrips. Pretty good. Good sideboard cards are good. Now they obviously still have 5 mana to work with, so it's not like we completely cut them off of everything. But I think we have to take the opportunity to get out from underneath their mana. Alright, so they've got the Grafted Skullcap. This is going to give them the ability to dig it once again. Okay, the Phyrexian Furnace. We've already discussed what that does for us. Doesn't make me the happiest. But now our plan is going to be play this Zombie Infestation and hold up Counterspell. We're probably not making zombies for a little while though. Oh, and Annul. Big fan of drawing that one. So we play out this and we're going to jam. I think we're going to put the iron into play now. This one-off Zombie Infestation is hopefully going to do all the work we need it to do. Maybe they find an ancient tomb at some point and that helps us out. They're not really hurting themselves right now with their mana, which is unfortunate. It is a thing this deck sometimes ends up going down to like 2 off of its own lands just to try and assemble a lock. We got Counterspell and Annul ready to fire into our opponent's permanents. Alright, they're drawing a card. So they see that we're on the Zombie Infestation plan. They don't care that much about having 2 furnaces to deal with. Psychatog, they've still got 1 going. We don't have any cards. Sure, that's fine. We're going to hit payoffs with our counter magic. And this Fact or Fiction is going to get us some good value. Playing out the Crystal Vein, they're valuing this over the Seat of Traitors. This is probably because they want to play more land drops later on. So discard 1 card, it's just a wasteland. That's fair enough, doesn't do very much. A Powder Keg. Now that is very much what I want to be doing here. If we play it out, we don't have double counter magic available. I don't think we play it out. I think we hold it for now. We hold up Counterspell and Annul, as well as the ability to cast Fact or Fiction if they don't play anything we care about. And then every card we have in hand is effectively 1 power. So we can just get some stuff going with the Zombie Infestation. Now I'd like to Fact or Fiction at some point first. But our opponent's just going to keep putting Haymaker after Haymaker into play and forcing us to spend our mana on interaction instead of drawing more cards, which is what we really want to be doing. Something big here. Okay. Please don't have a follow-up. If it's just a Thran Dynamo, then I can Fact or Fiction. That makes me feel okay. Null Brooch. Discard your hand. Counter target non-creature spell. That's kind of an interesting one. But I think we're just going to Fact or Fiction here. Get a bunch of cards and then just start slamming. What would you like me to have? The Duress is entirely blank against our opponent's Skullcap draw. Is it going to be 4 cards versus Fact or Fiction? I suspect it probably is. In which case we just take the 4 cards and make a bunch of guys, I think. And you can have your Null Brooch. Sure. And we're going to make 2 zombies, I believe. And just start beating down. Like, our opponent's not going to have much for creatures in their deck, especially after game 1. Just get rid of these. Get rid of these. And we're just going to start clocking for 4 damage a turn. I think we might also be doing another zombie soon. The one spell we really care about here is Ensnaring Bridge. We have 2 counter spells. They have 1 way of forcing that through. Sure. This might be them drawing a card off this furnace now. This game isn't about Psychatog. They played a Mishra's Factory. Could have done without that one. Tangle Wire. I forgot about Tangle Wire. It's definitely on the annoying side of the spectrum, isn't it? Sure, I think we just have to let that one happen. And I will make another zombie. Alright, we're tapping some permanents here. This still works when it's tapped, so that can get tapped. We don't really need this swamp. We'll tap down these 2. Accumulated Knowledge. Am I attacking into their Mishra's Factory? It just trades out right now. Is that worth it? I think they were probably okay with that trade. Like, if they... if they wait a turn, they can pump it to itself. I think we will offer the trade now. I'm pretty sure it came in last turn unless I made a horrible mistake. Yeah, I played the Mishra's Factory last turn. So they can choose to trade here, or they can keep it alive the next turn, but then it's going to be tapped anyway. So I think this is just a trade they make. We clear a little bit of mana out of our opponent's pool of resources, and then we can continue attacking for 4 next turn, depending on what we draw off of this AK. So they have to tap a bunch of stuff here. So it does make their Null Brooch harder to use. Now, it's probably just going to be, what, Tangle Wire, Skullcap. Okay, they are tapping down mana, so that's good news for us. They do have triple Thran Dynamo. And one of them basically just does the Brooch on its own. I wonder if we're going to regret not interacting with this one. Now, we chose to get 4 power into play. Another Skullcap. It's going to be a lot of looks. I think we just have to let that one go. Maybe we're supposed to just fire in, just ignore our counter spells and just try and ride this Zombie Infestation all the way to the bank. I wonder if they're cracking this Phyrexian Furnace. So we kind of have double... We do have the way of countering a spell here. But we could just bin off 2 of these cards, make another zombie. I don't think we're doing that, but it's an option that was available to us. 1, 2, 3, an impulse. I think we might just be making another 4 power in our opponent's turn, but if there is the ensnaring bridge, we do have to kind of have this going up, but I think we need to take our chances at some point. I guess we hit for 6 next turn, potentially. I guess we still have to tangle. No, we can just tap both these down. Yeah, so we can hit for 6 next turn, and then turn after we can hit for 8, and that's lethal, so we don't actually have to go shields down on these. Weird game. It's almost like playing a prison deck that has all these pieces that fundamentally changes how the game works. It's going to change how the game works. It does feel like our opponent is fully on the colourless train, though. I'm not seeing anything that's making me think they have welders. Right, they've gone to sacrifice their furnace, so they're getting lower on stuff to do. They're saying GG's here. They really just not have anything. I don't think they're dead here. Well, they get another turn, and in that other turn, they could find a... Alright, 2-0, let's go to round 3. Okay, Duress into Impulse is a reasonable curve. We have a foil if something really weird happens, so we'll keep this. Leading off on the Duress does mean that if we find a Counterspell on turn 2, it's not going to be the most useful. Alright, Birds of Paradise. So I'd very much like to Duress and hit the only copy of Survivor of the Fittest in my opponent's hand. That would make me happy. Let's see if we can put that dream into practice. Okay, so now this Polluted Delta can go and find us an island later, so we can just use this swamp. Because we basically want 1 swamp, and very rarely do we ever want more than 1 swamp. Alright, show me that single copy of Survivor of the Fittest. And because we've seen the Great Whale, we know that our opponent is probably on a combo build, because you put this into the graveyard and then you play the Vesuvian Shapeshifter and it comes in as a copy of this and untaps all your lands. You normally see Palinchron in the spot rather than Great Whale, but they're much of a muchness in terms of what you're actually using them for. We're looking at Wall of Roots, Wall of Blossoms. Yeah, it makes sense to cast the Wall of Blossoms here. Get more information what you're working with here rather than just the 1 mana from the Wall of Roots, because if this draws you a survival, you can just play survival. Wall of Roots. Okay. You've got some guys, and we're just going to eventually hope to put ourselves in a position where we can Psychatog and fly over the top. Force Spike. Not sure this is going to catch the most amount of use against our opponent's deck here. They've got Cradle in play and 2 mana dogs. But this is a card that pitches to foil. We also want to make sure we play out the Polluted Delta before the island here, so that we always have the island in hand for the foil. Because you discard 2 cards, which is important because they go to the graveyard, so you can fuel your Psychatog with them. Cabal Therapy. I'd rather you didn't. What are you going to name here? Counterspell, Mana Leak. We'll find out. They got 1 mystery card in hand. They did name Mana Leak, but we have foil. They can sacrifice their guy if they need to resolve something right now. I think we let them hit here. So they're going to take our foil if they want to resolve something right now. Okay, they just got rid of the Intuition. That is a card I cared least about in my hand, I think. Well, actually, it's the Force Spike I cared least about. But they were never taking the Force Spike. Right, let's Impulse. Duress, we don't want that. I'll just take a Portent, that's fine. A Gush, happy to see that one. Let's crack this now. That was bad. That was real bad. We should have Portented first, because now we have to keep all of the cards with the Portent. Or none of them. We could have just taken 1. Boomerang, Impulse, and a land. Not really into these. We want just card advantage right now. I think we're going to go any order and shuffle. I might have taken the Impulse, given the opportunity of just having 1 card. So cracking that fetch land was an objective misplay there. I should know better as a legacy player as well. Okay. Land out here. And pass. So we've got hard cast foil or 2 Force Spikes. I doubt these Force Spikes are doing anything. I think we're going to be staring at each other a fair bit. You have a Maya Granger. Sure. This can attack. So this actually does give them a threat. I would be very surprised they didn't pay the Echo for this next turn. So probably go and get an island here. So they can maybe think about casting this Great Whale. No, they did not. Okay. So I can Gush here, but we don't need to Gush. Another island. Okay. Just hold up this foil plus Force Spike, and then we have a hard cast Gush. Because we have these cards that we're happy to pitch to our foil, we don't need to use the Gush to give us some lands that we don't need to then pitch to the foil. Right, so like I said, they paid for the Yavimaya Granger because now they actually have something going on. So they can attack us for 2. This Great Whale does not look like it's coming into play anytime soon. A lot of these survival decks, when they don't have survival, don't feel very good. And we can just cast this for its iron price. 5 mana. A Wonder. Not the most enamored with that one. You know, it interacts a little bit here. We can block with it and deal with a Yavimaya Granger. So we've still got foil plus double force spike here. We don't have the hard cast foil, but like I said, we've got plenty of stuff to throw into it. What we really need is Fact or Fiction. Or get the accumulated knowledge train rolling. I will trade this Wonder for Yavimaya Granger. Our opponent is probably only going to be drawing 1 card a turn. And we, hopefully, are going to be drawing more than 1 card a turn. I would rather have this Underground River in play, I think. And we don't need to start chipping away for damage. We're just going to happily sit there, walling their Yavimaya Granger. So they probably need to save up and play multiple spells in 1 turn and have a big turn. Unless they can just wait till they find another Cabal Therapy. Recurring Nightmare. That's a no from me, that one. Because then they just start looping this Wall of Blossoms and this Yavimaya Granger and they just keep drawing cards and gaining lands. And we can't let that situation happen. I could smother this Yavimaya Granger. But I think I'm more than happy just to block it. Just get that trade off. Wander's in the graveyard where it belongs. Can we draw a Fact or Fiction, please? Circular Logic. So if we draw another foil, I would like to have this island in hand, and I don't think it makes a difference having 1 more mana this turn cycle. So how many cards do we want in our graveyard? 8. So we should be able to turn this Circular Logic into a hard counter. Nothing from our opponent. It's back to us. Can we please draw some card advantage spells? I even take an accumulated knowledge. Oh, there's an accumulated knowledge. I will play it now. Actual factual counterspell. So we are sat on a bunch of counter magic. Our opponent has nothing going on. At some point, we'll find another accumulated knowledge and start pulling ahead. Or we'll find the more gushes, or we'll find ourselves the Fact or Fiction, which is the big one. All right, looks like it's Great Whale time. They got the blue in their pool. It's Palinchron. Okay, so how many mana do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to cast Circular Logic on this, leaving up Counterspell still. I don't believe they're going to be able to pay 9. All right. We continue to draw some cards. We know this has no target, so I'm not going to just throw this away. If we have a Psychatog, this is worth way more damage in our hand than if we just put it into graveyard for no reason. Just to have a look at a card that we've already seen. It is a nice looking card. I do enjoy the art on this card. But I don't need to duress my opponent to get the opportunity to look at it again. Our opponent probably has Anger in their deck, showing us the Mountain. Not unexpected, given they had the Granger. Right, it's the Great Whale. So this is kind of an awkward one, because I think we have to counterspell because it's a big 5/5 that we can't really answer once it's in play. But the downside of this one is pretty big, because if they just go and play a survival now, then we're in trouble. But they could have done that play last turn. Okay, it was a Wall of Roots. You got it. Don't care about that one. Wouldn't mind a Psychatog now, just to like sort of chip away, but I think we need card advantage. Ghastly Demise. That is the thing that could have killed the Great Whale. Wish I'd have known that was on top of our library before we counterspelled that. This is a one-off, so I don't think we could have relied on finding this. Please, deck. Can I have Fact or Fiction? Yes. Thank you, deck. Do we need to cast this now? I don't think so. We can wait till our opponent does something, and then we can cast it in response. And then we know what mana we're leaving open a little bit better at that point. Sadistic Hypnotist. They sacrifice creatures and we discard cards. I don't really want to deal with that one, do I? So let's go for 1, 2, 3, 4 and Fact or Fiction. These cards don't quite do what we need them to do. Psychatog versus the world. Why would I choose anything other than the pile of 4 cards? Riddle me this. Yes, I will draw many, many cards. And I will accumulated knowledge here. And draw some more cards. See if we can find a foil. Okay, we didn't find the foil. So our opponent does get to just wipe our hand here. We can kill the Sadistic Hypnotist. Birds of Paradise, you got it. This has to be activated as a sorcery. There's a chance our opponent doesn't strip our hand because we have a million cards. They might wait until their next turn. Doesn't look like they want to do that though. Let's kill this. Oh, this can only kill non-black creatures, right? If we kill any of their creatures, they're just gonna... Yeah, I guess we don't need the Duresses, so they can go. But we can still use these cards in our graveyard if we find a Psychatog. I'm kind of tempted to Ghastly Demise the Birds of Paradise, get rid of a flying blocker. They also don't get to use it to sacrifice because this is only sorcery. And then we can hopefully just play a Psychatog now. That's kind of what we want. A Boomerang. Okay, I think we start off on the Portent. Let's have a look at what we're working with. We have a fetch down. We can do it properly this time. This is no good. So this is any order and shuffle. We're not going to see the next card yet, but we can Portent ourselves again. Accumulated Knowledge draws us additional cards. And then we have a Powder Keg, which I would like to have access to. Potentially. Okay, so we're going to go put on top, put on top, put on top. Draw the Accumulated Knowledge and then shuffle after we've drawn it. I could take out one of these guys to stop them right now from having scarier stuff that we need to care about. Because if we're taking less cards, yeah, okay. Let's just... This is basically like a 2-for-1 because this represents us discarding 2 cards. Right, do I want the Powder Keg is the next question. I think I'd rather have another shot at drawing a counterspell here. Underground River. Okay. So we have an Accumulated Knowledge. We can fire that off and it's going to draw us 3 cards, I think, at this point. So let's see what our opponent wants to... Avalanche Riders. Not big into Avalanche Riders. But now we have the information. I think I'm okay to do this. Do I want to hold up the ability to cast a Smother here? Not really. Although I wouldn't mind smothering this Wall of Roots in combat, potentially. Sure. I'm going to leave out that possibility and draw 3 cards. We have a Counterspell. We could Counterspell this. Is this what we care about, though? It's another creature, which is the thing I'm unhappy about. I think I'm going to reluctantly Counterspell this. Where are my Psychatogs? Psychatog is lethal in 1 swing. I think we're going to Impulse on our turn looking for a Psychatog. I'm discarding 2 cards, am I? I'm going to discard 2 Force Spikes. Enjoy these useless cards. Powder Keg, not the 1. Okay, let's Portent. I think we should have used the Swamp for this. I like the Gush. I'll take the Gush. I will cast the Gush. Actually, do we want to Portent first? I think we do want to Portent first. Counterspell. I don't hate the Counterspell. So we go this one, this one, this one. Say no, and then we Gush. Return 2 islands. Then we can play this one out. So we got our Counterspell ready. We can deploy this Powder Keg. And then we can shuffle away so we don't have to draw the land underneath it. Because we've got a Portent draw on our opponent's turn coming up. So just get another island. 7 cards in hand and pass. We're seeing a lot of cards here. Is it time for Psychatog? It is time for Psychatog. And we have a Counterspell backing it up. The Boomerang can sometimes be pretty useful as well. I do like this one-off Boomerang. Okay, so we say yes to this. I will play out my island here. We'll play out a Psychatog. You are in check now, opponent. I have 29 cards in my graveyard. That is very lethal. We don't have to care about much here. That's not one of the things we care about. We lose 2 cards, but again, the amount of cards in our graveyard is so large that it's not going to matter. What is your 1 card in hand, and can it somehow mysteriously beat this Counterspell? If they make us discard 4 cards, we still get to keep the Counterspell. I'll discard Underground River and Swamp. Alright, we got there. So, our opponent is playing a whole bunch of different cards. This is where it gets a little bit trickier, I think. So, I do think that they have the combo in with the Shapeshifter. We did see like a smattering of red cards. I don't think we want to board these in. We did see Survivor of the Fittest. The 1 card we want to deal with Survivor of the Fittest is this. I would like this Vendetta 100%. So, 4 Spikes seems pretty bad against our opponent's Mana Dork deck. So that's probably what gets cut here. And then they're going to have Squeeze in their deck. So I would like to try and punish that a little bit. How much are we bothered by our opponent's potential Furnaces? Do we need to have the Zombie Infestation? It's so hard to use a Zombie Infestation plan against the A Million Walls plan though. But maybe we can sweep them with this. So let's say we're interested in these things. We also have to decide if we think Duress is better than Annul. Annul only hits survival, really. This can sometimes hit some other tricky permanents, but survival is the best card in our opponent's deck by an absolute mile. I don't think this is a Boomerang matchup, so we get rid of the Boomerang. And is it just the intuition? I find myself boarding this out quite a lot, actually. But maybe that's okay. So, do I want these Annuls? We could split the difference on Duresses and Annuls. Duress only works before the fact. Annul will always work if we have it in hand at the time. But can get taken out of our hand with hand disruption, whereas the Duress can just work and give us information about how we need to play around what our opponent's doing, and I do value that information a great deal. I could trim one impulse and I could maybe do something like trim 2 impulses and get 2 Annuls in. Actually, we want 3 Annuls if we're on the draw. Alright, we'll try something that looks like this, and we can reappraise the situation. We're learning a bit as we go. I haven't really played many control decks in Premodern yet, outside of, you know, helping other people test a little bit. Ghastly Demise that we can use on turn 1 to kill like a Birds of Paradise. Also kills Wall of Roots. But then we just got loads of land, and there's no brainstorms in this format, so I can't fix this hand, so I think we have to mulligan. Much better. 2 accumulated knowledges, a Portent, a Gush. Are we putting back a Gush? Is that wild? I do like the accumulated knowledge. We could put back the Portent. I think it might be the Gush here. And we can just have 2 accumulated knowledges. So this is 2 cards that effectively draws us 3 cards. But it also means that as things progress, our deck's going to feel way better. So let's go and get an island. They started off on a swamp and didn't Cabal Therapy or anything. Let's Portent ourselves and see. Psychatog. I didn't really want an early Psychatog. I didn't really want to draw 2 lands either. I think this is any or in shuffle. We need to be relatively quick about our decisions because it can take a long time to play this deck. A Gush. Okay, it came back again. I don't like the art on this one that much. I'd much prefer the classic art of the Ice Cube. Yeah, with a Wretch. We can Smother this. We can Vendetta this. If this is their choice of Graveyard Hate, I can live with that. Not having an island here isn't the end of the world because we have access to 2 here, but then we have to go back to 0 lands. But we're probably not foiling right now. We have the Counterspell, which kind of does the same thing. Well, it does the exact same thing. It has the same line of text on it. Undiscovered Paradise. That's probably going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting in our opponent's 4 to 5 colour deck. Yep, if they're just going to spend all their mana doing this, it's going to be pretty good against our accumulated knowledge, which makes me reluctant to tap down for this knowledge right now. Maybe our opponent plays like a 1-drop in a second. They did not. So I don't even want to accumulate knowledge. That is annoying. Portent. Sure. Let's Portent ourselves here. Circular Logic, Ghastly Demise. This is non-black, by the way. So it doesn't answer the Withered Wretch. Now, it is good against their deck in general. So I think this is okay enough to keep. So we're going to go top, top, Demise. We'll draw the Ghastly Demise. And then we'll probably just shuffle the other card away. I don't really want a Circular Logic here. Kind of already have 2 counter spells. We need our opponent to tap to a point where we can just double tap with this. Interesting. Do I let them hit with this? What are they going to name? I don't know. Choose what you like. Because this is obviously a blind one, so they don't really know what they're working towards. They've named Annul. Okay, that means our opponent has a Survivor of the Fittest in hand they're trying to work with. But we have that covered. Survival of the Fittest. I'll get an island. I'll cast Counterspell. It's interesting they still ran this one out. Maybe they've got a Red Blast here. Sure, you can Red Blast that, but then we get to cast Gush. And then I will Gush pitching then I'll foil pitching an island and an accumulated knowledge. Then I can accumulate knowledge for additional cards. I don't know what our opponent's saying. We've drawn some cards now, and we're going to foil and discard an island and an accumulated knowledge. I'm going to take 2 damage here. I'm not sure what the hold up on our opponent's end was there. I spent a while with that on the stack. Maybe they were just telling me they're going somewhere, I don't know. So if we draw a foil and we really want the foil to work, we pay a life for this. I don't think that's The 1 life point is actually relevant enough that I'm going to not play into the... I think we have 1 foil left in our deck. We're going to draw 2 cards. Let's convert that while we can. We can start doing some Psychatog stuff soon, and our opponent's just going to have to spend their whole time like sticking mana into the Withered Wretch instead of developing their board. Avalanche Riders. You got it. They don't have the mana to stop this accumulated knowledge going through. We're going to take 4 damage, but we're going to draw a load of cards. Unless we find like a Smother, then we can take our time slower and just deal with this Withered Wretch. Because this will die next turn anyway. So we play this one out. If we draw 3 cards off of this, I'm probably going to have to go to discard here. So 5, 6, 7, 8. But I think that's worth it. Okay, not bad. What are we pitching here? Is it just the swamp? I think it's the swamp. We're going to hit more lands and we're casting Factual Fiction and stuff like that anyway. However, if our opponent has, let's say, Recurring Nightmare right now, then we're going to lose all of our lands. That's going to be bad. Right, they're spending their mana on taking out that accumulated knowledge. I assume you'd like to hit the other ones, if they're going for it now. Okay, so this is just a turn where they're resetting our graveyard. We've already got the value out of our accumulated knowledges. It was a 2 mana draw 2 and a 2 mana draw 3. So we paid a 4 mana draw 5. So I'm pretty happy with how we're doing. We can answer this now. Or we can just play a Tog. I'm going to go and get an island. And just hold up Counterspell here. Because I do have some scary permanents like Recurring Nightmare. And then we can answer this. We're going to go to 4 and then hopefully stabilize. And deploy a Tog. And start doing good stuff. I probably need a little bit more mana before I can deploy the Tog, because we do need to hold up interaction. But we can Counterspell plus Ghastly Demise. Alright, if you're just going to strip out my graveyard here in pre-combat main phase, then that's fine by me. Because then we can use our Smother when they go to attacks. So this is much better if they do it in their post-combat main phase. Because if they let us know that they're not casting anything, then we can Smother this and save 2 damage. Another Withered Wretch. I don't really want to deal with another Withered Wretch, do I? Not with our current life total. So we say no to this. Where are all your green creatures for my Ghastly Demise opponent? We will find a target for this, I'm sure. We might be going to 2 life soon, though. Vendetta. It's an awkward one, isn't it? We could just play a Psychatog and just say, look, this is going to sit in your way. Let's try that. Got to be bold. Every time they activate the Withered Wretch, we can just remove the cards from the graveyard. I don't necessarily know what I'm most worried about here. Our opponent's definitely got some scary stuff in their deck. Like if they play Survival or Recurring Nightmare, that's bad for us. It's a Ranged Hermit. Okay. Well, the Ghastly Demise kills this. But then what is the question? Okay, I'm not unhappy to see a land here. So we're going to see if our opponent pays the Echo cost first, and then we'll kill it. Which means we're probably just holding up the rest of our mana. We only have 1 black, so we can't remove multiple things. But I don't think we're going to have to remove multiple things this turn. If I done my maths wrong, are we just dead to this? We block here, we take 4 and die. Yeah, that maths doesn't work very well for us, does it? I was trying to play quickly because of the clock, and I think we're just dead here. Now, our opponent might not send everything in. Okay, because they didn't pay the Echo cost, we're not dead on board. Can block a Squirrel token and then Smother the Withered Wretch. Oh, I should have exiled that Psychatog. Whoops. Does it even matter at this point? The Squirrel's not killing it. I think it's fine just to let them take it because we'd have to exile 2, so we end up with fewer cards in our graveyard. So it's actually like a bait here if we take them out. This Vendetta looks pretty poor now though. But they're just tapping out here. So we're going to go to 1. It might be difficult to kill our opponent here. But we can play another Psychatog. Potentially. Maybe get a removal spell that works here. Oh my god, Powder Keg. Hook that to my veins right now. Gush. I think the correct play is to Gush first here. Smother Underground River. Okay, we'll play one of these lands out. We'll use our floating mana here to play a Powder Keg. We will attack with our Psychatog. And I guess we hold up... Do we hold up Smother or do we play the Psychatog? Psychatog is probably going to beat most of the stuff they play anyway. How much point is there in having a second Psychatog? Allows us to do sword and shield type stuff. No, I think we represent counter magic. So they'll attack, we'll pop the keg. I don't believe our opponent's having Stifle, otherwise it would have cracked us on our turn. Oh, Survivor of the Fittest. That is terrible news. Okay. Real terrible news for us. We also know the Wanderer's at the bottom of our library because of that Impulse. They're discarding the Palinchron. They probably go and get a Squee here. And just start that value train going. Gilded Drake. So this is okay, actually. We can just get a 3/3 flyer. That's better than our Psychatog right now. Okay. Because when the Psychatog dies, it will go into our graveyard. So it'll fuel the next Psychatog. Pop this. They probably have their own Psychatogs in their deck as well. Just smother this. So we have a Ghastly Demise which deals with a hasty Avalanche Rider. We can't Psychatog and do that at the same time though. But Psychatog is hopefully enough to hold the fort here. We do need to win this game. 1 point here. We could just hold up the Factual Fiction though. That's probably the stronger play. Okay, we're going to hold up the Factual Fiction. Represent those counterspells. This Vendetta. We need them to play like Wall of Roots. No, this is equal to toughness, so not Wall of Roots. We can't use this on anything. Yep, they're pitching something to the survival. I don't think they're going to have more Avalanche Riders, but it's possible. I wonder if they've got anything that allows them to tutor for an enchantment they can get. Because then they could get the Recurring Nightmare and just start it all up again. Flame Tongue Carvu. This is 4 damage to target creature. This is going to blow up the Gilded Drake here. And that's fine. I think we should have Factual Fiction in response. Maybe get our opponent to make a bad pile. Because if there's a foil in there, maybe we will actually want the foil. So I think that was a bit loose for us. But we are playing carefully because of time constraints. Okay, I like the Circular Logic a lot here. They're just going to give us Circular Logic versus 4. Why do people keep giving me piles of 4? I guess we choose the pile of 4. It's pretty good. Okay, so this Underground River doesn't work. This Polluted Delta doesn't work. Really gated ourselves on black mana here. We can Psychatog and then remove cards from the graveyard to block the Carvu. Or we could just Ghastly Demise this guy now. Play out this island. Deploy a Furnace. Hold up interaction. I can't remember if this is game 2 or game... Sorry, if this is game 3 or game 4. Or, sorry, round 3 or round 4. Now, discarding Sadistic Hypnotist, which is a pretty good card on this. Well, it's not that good, but it's... Okay, Gitu Slinger. Okay. Birds of Paradise. You got it. They're not playing the Gitu Slinger that they have. That is very curious to me. Let's Impulse. Zombie Infestation. Accumulated Knowledge, we know that doesn't do anything here. We just take an island? That sounds bad. Accumulated Knowledge is a redraw. I'll take it. That's bad, though. Psychatog. I think we play the Psychatog here. Or we Gush. Do we Gush first? Let me Gush. A Portent. So I think we just play the Psychatog here. And we play a land and Portent. No, I guess we Portent first, don't we? Correct order of operations. I don't know why I didn't play the Gitu Slinger. Annul, Counterspell. Okay, I would like a Counterspell, please. So we play his land out. We play out this Psychatog. Hold up Counterspell that we're drawing next turn. And we can try and win the game next turn. Now, our opponent might just hold this in hand until they find... they have a Cabal Therapy over there, don't they? And it's the bottom card of their deck, isn't it? So, right now we need to use this, exile their Cabal Therapy so they can't get rid of our Counterspell. We should have done that in response to the Birds of Paradise coming into play. Or what was this on the stack, we should have taken it out. Gitu Slinger. No, oh, they got red mana from the birds, I guess. They're going to Red Blast us? They are going to Red Blast us. So the Gitu Slinger comes into play and domes us for 2. They could have done this last turn with the Cabal Therapy. We don't have that much time to play our final game, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get this one in. Alright, they didn't want to go through the thing. We'll call that one a draw. So I think that makes us 2-0-1. Alright, our opener is fine. I'll keep this. Portent into Counterspell. Maybe we'll find some black mana for this Ghastly Demise, which seems to ebb and flow in how useful it is for us. This is round 4. I went back and checked. So you got another round after this one as well. Birds of Paradise, that is something that we can kill with the Ghastly Demise quite early on, but it's not really where we want to point it. Being on the draw, so our opponent gets a chance to survival us here, is going to be a pain. Portent. 3 lands. I would like the swamp. Do I want the other 2 lands? That's a lot of lands to draw through. We kind of have stuff to do with those lands. It's 1 land too many. If there's 2 lands, I'd snap it off. 3 lands is so many. I think we're going to put him back. We did find another land. It was an island. We kind of want a swamp at this point. Nothing else. Okay. Playing it slow over there. So now we're holding up Counterspell. We've got Accumulated Knowledge that we can fire off if they don't do anything. Also, I should just add, this is my favourite Birds of Paradise artwork. I know there's a lot of Birds of Paradise out there. There's just something nice about this one that appeals. Intuition. That's pretty spooky. If this gets something like a squee that can just hop out the graveyard, that's going to be really annoying. We could try and counter the things that come out of it. Okay, I'm going to see what comes out of this, and maybe I've made a horrible mistake or not. The blue and the green makes me think we're not looking at squeeze, and it's going to be like a spell they want to resolve. So this will take spells they want to resolve out of their deck. Cabal Therapy. Okay. So this is going to take Counterspell but cost them a creature, kind of, I guess. Alright, I assume they're going to target us, and I assume they're going to name Counterspell. But we can still draw foil off of this Accumulated Knowledge. They did name Counterspell, and they did hit. Wall of Blossoms. Sure, I'll draw a card. Actually, I haven't played a land yet. I should have waited on that. We found a black source. Big fan of that. This Wall of Blossoms is probably going to be sacrificed to this Cabal Therapy right now. And our hand is going to get absolutely shredded because they have all these Cabal Therapies. If we'd have counted the intuition, things would have been different. So, lesson learned. Like I said, I'm not used to playing this Psychatog deck. I'm not really used to playing control in the format either. Not entirely sure what our opponent's deck consists of here. They probably hit the Portent here. Would be what I would go after first. Their name's Psychatog. Okay, but we have more Psychatogs. We're not really ready for Psychatog. We can Ghastly Demise and take out their birds if we want. I wouldn't mind seeing what our opponent's working with here. I think I want to Portent first. Gush, Underground River. I like the Gush, but then we're just drawing through 2 lands. So I think this is any order. And I can Ghastly Demise this guy, or I can Duress my opponent. Feels like our opponent is trying to get to a turn where they resolve something important. I'm going to Duress them here. Like, they sacrifice this to get rid of our Ghastly Demise. It's kind of the same either way. Oh, it's an Alluring deck. I see. I think we get rid of the Namesake card. Is that true? Or do we get rid of the Intuition? Because they're always going to be able to resolve an Alluring at some point because they're just going to Birds of Paradise and get rid of our thing. How scared am I of this Intuition? It probably just gets Allurings anyway. Alright, let's just get rid of the Alluring. Let's draw a card. Fact or fiction? That's the exact sort of thing we're after right now. Just gas back up. Cabal Therapy. We're going to lose this Ghastly Demise. It's the thing they know, but this was going to be pointed at the birds anyway, because we can't let them just have Cabal Therapy sitting around, because then we can't sit on our counter spells when they try and resolve their big game-winning spell. So they kind of did our job for us, without costing us a mana. Birds of Paradise. Are you going to take my Fact or Fiction? If I was my opponent, I would 100% take my Fact or Fiction. Now, they can take one of the cards that comes out of it later on, because they obviously get to see them when they make the piles. I don't really think that's great. Yep, so we're going to lose the Fact or Fiction. I wish I hadn't let that Intuition resolve earlier on. But we're learning a big lesson. I think you should only really let Intuitions resolve if you know what your opponent's doing and you can sort of map out what it is they're going for. It's Mr. Teeth himself. I know we have 2 islands. Do we need to play out the island? It's more damage in hand, but how much damage do we realistically have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I just want to make a land drop here. Maybe our opponent's lost track of what cards we have and worries about a Circular Logic. We don't really have the resources to make the most use of this Psychatog yet. Alright, we're getting an Intuition response. They could go and get like a removal spell. They're getting an Alluring. Now, I think they're going to need something more to go with this Alluring, because it's a multiple step combo. It's not like in Legacy where you can just play the Recruiter and just get all the things you need and win. So I think we're going to go and see the Alluring enter play now. And I don't know if anything's going to happen. We're not going to play out a land. We're just going to attack. Oh, sorry. We can play out this land. Actually, no, we're fine. We're just going to keep these in hand because it's just more stuff to pitch to the target. It's more damage later on. We need to find our gushes. 3 Wall of Blossoms for free. Pretty good. We can't remove this outside of Boomerang. Impulse, sure. So if they find Cavern Harpy needs a blue or black creature to bounce. So Cavern Harpy can't give them the loop with Wall of Blossoms. So they're going to need to find 2 separate pieces here. Alright. An island, you say? I go to combat. I will pump enough to kill a wall. Discard the island they know about. And pump a couple of times from the graveyard. So the other option here is to just do nothing and try and draw a wonder at some point. I don't have enough reps to know if that's the correct thing to do here or not. Spike Feeder. So this is part of their combo. They can go infinite with this if they have Wall of Roots, Man-O-War, and Cavern Harpy. They can make their creatures infinitely large and gain infinite life. They can gain infinite life without needing Wall of Roots in that little equation though. Psychatog. Alright, let's attack. Just get rid of a land from hand. Exile some cards from the graveyard. This isn't really the best way of using our graveyard in our deck, but needs must sometime. Put our way through that. We can flash in our Psychatog whenever we want because of the Allurant is a symmetrical effect. So we might be able to catch this Spike Feeder out in combat. And if we can force them to lose their Spike Feeder, it's going to make it way harder for them to combo. Surprise, Dr. Teeth. I will exile the non-accumulated knowledge spells and see if we can get this Spike Feeder to go away. They're probably just going to sack it for a bunch of life, but it's off the board and they can't combo him. It cost us a lot of resources for our big combo punch turn, so we don't really have that. We just need to find some card advantage. Is that probably going to flash anything in the end step? No. Bird. This bird is pretty good. If it finds a Cavern Harpy, they should be able to assemble their combo. They've got enough life that they can pay the life to bounce the Cavern Harpy enough times to get the Raven Familiar going. Cavern Harpy. Yep. So this isn't deterministic. And the way you should play with Allurant is you cast your Cavern Harpy first when there's nothing in play. And then with its return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand, you pay 1 life and bounce it. And then you play your Raven Familiar. And then you have like extra bubbles so they can't be interfered with. So we got another Raven Familiar, so dig in. Can bounce the Cavern Harpy and go again. Impulse, sure. So they need to find Spike Feeder and Man-O-War. But if they find it, I'll happily scoop rather than make them click through it. Yeah, so with this trigger on the stack, you should be paying 1 life to bounce your Cavern Harpy. It doesn't really matter when they have this many Raven Familiars anyway. But when you only have 1, it just stops removal randomly stopping you in your tracks because you just have a thing that you can flash in your Cavern Harpy in response to removal and go again. Now, sure, you can then pay 1 life and bounce your Cavern Harpy again, but it's just what Allurant players have told me because you just have slightly more windows of being able to interrupt what your opponent's doing. Alright, many birds over here. Man-O-War, okay. So this gives them the ability to draw their deck, but they need to do it in enough time. I don't think we even win the fair plan of just Man-O-Warring us over and over again. I think we'll skip this one up. Thinking about it, because they can bounce all our stuff out of play. They can repeatedly Raven's Familiar. It's not going to take much for them to win at that point. So Annuls look good. The Engineered Plague stops Cavern Harpy in its tracks. And I think that's probably all we want for now. Or Vendetta is probably good enough. That's 7 cards. That's a lot. Powder Keg is good for taking out their little guys. Force Spike looks terrible here. That can come out. I'm boarding out Intuition a lot. This is the most expensive card in the deck. And we're just boarding it out over and over again. Which is interesting. Oh, we only have 1 foil. I thought we had 2 earlier. Okay. I might change the way I would have played a previous round. Thinking about it. Ghastly Demise, great. The Duress, we just need a bunch of answers for their bits and pieces. This does do the work for us. Boomerang is our only way of getting an Allurant out of play, so I guess that has to go away. Maybe we're like trimming some Impulse. I don't want to trim any card advantage. Do we need the Engineered Plagues? Probably we do. Are we even playing with the Boomerang? Because all this is only good against specifically Alluring, and Engineered Plague does the same job, but also has more flex. We could just cut these 2 impulses. Okay, we'll try that. More interaction. So instead of having to cast the impulse to find the interaction, we just have more of it. Okay, this hand seems fine. I think my mistake in game 1 was not countering the intuition, and we paid heavily for it. Let's duress our opponent. Plane Avoid. Get out of here. So their hand isn't very strong. It's all birds. Birds all the way down. They do have their natural mana, which is helpful. So here comes the birds. We don't get to hold up Counterspell this turn. But our opponent doesn't necessarily know that. We could hold up Mana Leak. I think we just hold up the Annul though, because we don't want to get caught out by the Survivor of the Fittest off the top. Survivor of the Fittest is the best card in our opponent's deck. Alright, Duress. Okay. Now our hand is pretty good. So it's not the end of the world if I take any one part of this hand. Because next turn we have Counterspell up or Annul plus Powder Keg. Powder Keg is artifacts and creatures, so this is an answer to Alluring, in case anyone's curious. I took the Counterspell and now they've got birds. So we have perfect information on our opponent's hand and we don't care about any of it. Not a terrible place to be. Drawn a Counterspell. It's very telegraphed if we don't play the Counterspell here. If we don't play the Powder Keg here. But I think it's nice to have the Counterspell here. You know, I've got Cabal Therapy over there. Okay, wish I'd play the Powder Keg. Very good draw for our opponent. I named Factual Fiction. Seems like a good name. Our deck thrives on having more cards, so cutting us off from us is really good. Right, so they're going to play out this Raven Familiar, I would imagine. And they're going to take the Counterspell so they can resolve the Familiar. I don't even think I'd point it at the Familiar, to be honest. Yeah, the black decks have pretty good matchups into blue decks because of things like Duress and Cabal Therapy. Alright, we lost the Counterspell. They're going to play the bird. We don't get to see what the bird gets. They just look at the top 3, put one in their hand and the others on the bottom. So now we're looking at Powder Keg holding up Annul unless we draw something. Accumulated Knowledge. I think that's more important than getting Powder Keg running. So let's just do that. We've got Annul plus Accumulated Knowledge. They're just paying for their guy. It does attack for 1 damage. It is a crow. Removing this creature is actually like an important deal because this is part of their engine, so we want to get rid of it at some point. Cavern Harpy. They can do fair Cavern Harpy stuff. Smother. Okay. That Cavern Harpy is such a good draw here. So they're going to bounce this Raven Familiar. But we don't even get to kill this, right? Because they can just bounce it. But we can probably kill the... Okay. Let's duress our opponent. I think they have an Alluring in hand, right? No, they did not. Okay. And then this is a 2-1 now. We can't reliably smother this because it does have 1 life. Bounce it. Right, there's a Land War Waste we know about. This doesn't have flash on its own. It's only when they have Alluring that it has flash. So we can just kill the Raven's Familiar if they play it out. Which I think we are 100% doing. In response to this, I'm going to smother before they get to see more cards. Now this does tell them that they should maybe be looking for something like the Raven Familiar because we just got rid of one. But I don't want them having additional cards that can possibly save the Raven Familiar. Wall of Blossoms, yep. We're probably going to be starting with the Powder Keg moment soon. Let's get that going. We got another Duress. Sure. Our opponent's draw has been much better than ours and we're going to get crushed here. Game 1, I think we lost because we didn't counterspell the intuition. And that's just stone cold fact there. This game we're losing because our opponent is drawing really hot. So if we don't get game 3 though, that's on us in terms of what we did in game 1. Gush that we can't cast. Oh, this is awful, isn't it? Just didn't get anything up and running this game and now we're falling behind. So this doesn't have anything that it can bounce right now. So they can't loop this with the Wall of Blossoms. So we're just on a little guy beatdown unless they have like another bird here. And then I think we're probably dead to the bird in a few turns time. Another Wall of Blossoms, that's fine. Yeah, we got Plane of Void. I don't think we can counter this. This has to save for the Alluring. Plane of Void isn't necessarily the worst against us because we can... This is a trigger to remove them, so we can just remove them to the Psychatog. Ghastly Demise. Not the most useful. We can use this on the Raven Familiar if our opponent's trying to just fairly dig towards the Alluring, but we have Alluring covered. We can't kill their Cavern Harpy. We can't draw cards with the Gush. Things are bad. Spike Feeder. That is one we can kill. I will take this opportunity to do so, I think. Just get out of here. So they're going to probably move the counters onto the Cavern Harpy. I think that's the most powerful use of their mana here, because then their clock is just going to be a really fair, powerful clock. Yep. Oh no, they're diversifying their threats. That's also fine. Put it onto the birds. The birds is easier for us to kill. I guess that's not necessarily the case, because we've already used our Ghastly Demise, and it's mainly Smothers and Vendettas that we're using here. Okay, Plane of Void is gobbling up our stuff. They've got 4 power. We found the Gush mana. Okay, we're not going to do that right now. We're going to wait until next turn and then do it, so we can replay one of the lands that we bounce, unless there's something we immediately need to interact with. Carpet of Flowers. Mana is not our opponent's problem here, so that's not something that I'm interacting with here. Okay. Now this is the moment for things to go well for us, in theory. Let's Gush. Replay one of these islands, and now we have foil available. This is a Harpy Beast. What is Psychatog? An Atog, of course he is. Okay, so let's just Engineer Plague on Beast. I don't know if there's any other beasts in their deck, but there's going to be more chance of having another beast than there is another Harpy. Sure, they can bounce this. I think we still name Beast, because we just don't want it coming back down again. We could have named the Birds of Paradise and maybe buy ourselves a bit more life, but then they just play the Cavern Harpy next turn. I guess the Cavern Harpy doesn't have anything to bounce right now anyway, so they can't replay it. So maybe we're just supposed to name Birds and take 1 point of damage off the table. That seems so bad. That's like, what, maybe gain 3? I'm not spending 3 mana to gain 3. I guess we bounced our opponent's creature as well. But yeah, that's not the one. Could really do with some action here. Well, they're actually adding mana with the carpet. Okay, they're just doing that because it's quicker to click it. Fair enough. Psychatog. I did ask for action. That is action. So we want to play this one out. I think we are cracking this now. As much as that annoys me with this Psychatog in play, but I think it's correct to do so. Just to make sure there's no weird timing windows. Maybe that's just me being overly cautious and we're just missing 1 damage, or missing half a damage with the Psychatog that we could be using. Not like we can actually really get anywhere with the Psychatog with those walls in the way. I think this looks like a pretty awkward matchup for us. A bunch of Black Hand Disruption, creatures that can stop our Psychatog from attacking if we get into one of those sorts of games. The combo finish we have to constantly be aware of. Lots of ability to sort of get value from their creatures. I think it's a bit tough. Our opponent's draw has not exactly been terrible either. Spike Feeder. I think we're just dead here. We can't allow them to have more things around. Like, we could exile this 1 card to a Psychatog now, but there's no point, because we have to exile a 2nd card, because it's exile 2 cards to the ability. So we just end up removing another card for later on. It's a bit like when we were playing against the Withered Wretch and they were targeting our stuff. I think we're probably just going to be dead soon. They now know that shields are down on casting things like Alluring, but the way they win this game is just turn this guy sideways twice. We've got 1 draw step that needs to find us either a draw spell or a removal spell. Maybe I've sideboarded wrong here and we're not supposed to board out the impulses. I think the real problem was, though, our hands got absolutely savaged by our opponent. Cabal Therapy that hits, plus a couple of Duresses on the backside of the Cabal Therapy. Alright, deck. Is it good? Is it bad? Are we dead? We're dead. Okay, cool. We can go to the final round. Alright, we got Portent into some other bits and pieces. This seems fine. Some card advantage spells. Obviously, this isn't a card advantage spell yet, but it fuels a 1 for further down the stretch. Okay, we didn't draw 4 Spike. So we're definitely just casting a Portent. Let's have a look. I like these cards. I'm going to put the Psychatog on the bottom, and then we're going to just draw Smother and the Gush. Like, we have lots of card advantage spells, that's why we're putting the Gush on the top, because if we get Duress and they take a card advantage spell, that's fine. Sylvan Libraries. That's obviously very good, and we're not in a position to deal with that because we were on the draw. Play draw, pretty important as it turns out. At this because we don't want the card underneath it, really. Get this island in. And we'll sit on some Counterspell now. But our opponent has a Sylvan Library, so they're going to get really good card selection every turn, and then also the ability to overpower us with multiple cards by drawing extras. Now, we can catch up, because our deck is pretty good at drawing cards. I go as far as saying that's the main identity. Oh, okay, our opponent's playing the Domain deck. I think that's what this means. Unless they're playing something a little spicier. Okay, no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is like a Nick Fit style deck. Uncertain. Let's cast this Accumulated Knowledge in the end step. We've drawn another one. Not a bad plan there. So let's just hold up this Psychatog. We have to make a choice about whether or not we're casting this Accumulated Knowledge in the end step. We have so many cards. We need to find a land, so I think we're relatively likely to cast this AK. Hopefully we have a really juicy counterspell target this turn. Rampant Growth is not it. This does help them shuffle with their Sylvan Libraries. That's kind of interesting. Mana, Pernicious Deed. Do I care about Pernicious Deed? No, I don't think I do. Wish I had one more mana, to be honest. I will AK now. More Gushes. Land. We did find a land. Okay, so we can play out this Powder Keg, just so we don't have to discard it, and then we can hold open the Counterspell. They can't pop the deed on to kill our Powder Keg without killing their library. We would like to find a land so we can bait out the Pernicious Deed on the Psychatog. Obviously, we can just do Gush, bounce some lands, and replay them, and play the Psychatog that way. All right, 3 mana. No, they decided. No. Who knows what's going on over there? There's lots of mana tapping and untapping. Call of the Herd. Sure, we have a Powder Keg in play. Please flash it back. Living Wish. I'm saying no to this one. Whatever it is you're doing over there, I don't want any part of it. Say no to this, leave it on 0 so we can blow up the elephants. Alright, let's Gush. Probably only got one card in hand. I'm just going to play this Psychatog out. I don't want to really have to discard cards here. Okay, I can discard just this Duress. I don't think this is going to be the most useful thing right now. Our opponent's pretty much in Hellbent mode. If they want to kill my Psychatog with the Pernicious Deed, they have to kill their library, which is why I'm happy putting this Psychatog out there. I wonder if we're supposed to pump our Psychatog and block this elephant this turn. We could just take 3. Start attacking. Try and pressure our opponent's life total. Apologies if you can hear any fireworks in the background. I don't think they're being picked up by the mic, but you never know. They didn't take any additional cards. Gamekeeper. Okay, I see what's happening here. They're going to blow this up and get a really spooky creature. I don't really want this to happen. I think this is going to be gushing in response here. We didn't really find the things we wanted to find there, which is problematic. So when they pop this deed, they pop it for 4 and kill their gamekeeper. Going to get something very bad for us. And now we're quite far behind. They want to smother my poor defenseless Psychatog. A little bit rude, but fair enough. I wonder what their big payoff is from the gamekeeper. I'm just going to pop the keg now. Just trade it for the elephant. It's not perfect, but it's an imperfect world, isn't it? I've got no cards in hand. We're going to play out this island. I'm not really sure how much use I'm going to get out of multiple smothers. The Ghastly Demise, though, that's hopefully going to pick up like the Nishoba or whatever it is our opponent's relying on. I think it's the Duress. And an island? Oh, we have to discard loads of cards, don't we? Alright, let's get rid of 3 cards here. We do need to build up into the mana to keep playing this game. And we're kind of underneath this Sylvan Library the whole time. The difference between play and draw can be pretty substantial. So if they've got an Nishoba, we can kill that with a Ghastly Demise. If they've got like a Verdant Force, the same is true. They've got Phyrexian Tower, so they can sacrifice this guy. And I assume they're going to. Because why wouldn't you, right? Unless they're worried about Stifle. Alright, let's see what the Gamekeeper reveals. So they mill over a bunch of stuff. It's Symbiotic Worm. Okay. That's pretty large. Pretty large indeed. Do they have red for Goblin Bombardment? Because that's pretty sick if they do. Malicious Deed not so good against the little Symbiote Worm tokens. We're going to be in a horrible situation where we kill our creature and they still have the same amount of power in play. Call of the Herd. You got it. I guess we'll smother this elephant. And then we can kill this in combat. That protects us damage-wise a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They can basically recast this. There's no point in removing it, like with a Boomerang. But we can Ghastly Demise in combat. Then they get 7 1/1s. They didn't mill over anything too spooky here. Skeletal Scrying is quite powerful. Some extra cards in their hand. They've just completely gassed up. And they've got a massive creature in play. We are losing this one a lot. I think if we were on the draw... Sorry, if we were on the play instead of the draw, this entire game feels different. Because we would have had the counterspell on turn 2 for the library. Right, so attacks. We demise it. We've got 14 cards in graveyard. That should be enough. They get some 1/1s, but if they ever crack this deed on anything, it's going to blow up with all these guys. Cabal Therapy. I'm just going to Boomerang a token. That doesn't sound great. No, they're not going to name Boomerang. They can flash this back, obviously. Gamekeeper. I would rather not have to play against that. We could bounce some islands looking for a counterspell, but I just don't think that's really going to get us where we need to go. I don't think we're winning this one. It's been quite a long last game, so the previous one, so I'm going to try and use our time more effectively here. So, Vendetta. Non-black creature does kill the big stuff. The Engineer Plague, hook that to my veins. We need that one. How much they're going to mess with our graveyard? Varying amounts. I don't know. It's probably just going to be like Tormod's Crypt, I think. Because they can't have permanents that sit in play because they've got these Pernicious Deeds. That doesn't feel like where they want to be. I like Vendetta here. It kills an elephant. Do I like the Phyrexian Furnaces here? I think I do. Powder Keg look great. Ghastly Demise and Smothers look fine. I keep reaching for this intuition. I don't know if it's right to be boarding that out, but I think that's what I'm doing. Take out a Boomerang this time around. Trim an Impulse. Maybe we can even trim a Psychatog here. Is that crazy people talk? What else are we getting rid of? We don't want to get rid of... Oh, Force Spikes. That's what we're getting rid of. There we go. Those are the two we were looking for. And we have Duress and Counterspell. Early Doors. I'm just trying to think about these Annuls. I don't think it's the Annul that we're after. What Annul does allow us to do is curve better into Counterspell. Alright, we have Duress and Portent. I will Duress our opponent to make sure we're not getting Sylvan Libraried. Do we do that? I think we have to at turn 1 because our opponent might have Duresses of their own. And then we don't get to Duress and take out their library, which is the thing that won them the last game at the end of the day. Like, sure, they got this big worm out and had all this other stuff going on, but it was because they drew a million extra cards and got to look at so many more cards than us. Cabal Therapy, Recurring Nightmare. Well, well, well. Get out of here, Recurring Nightmare. I'm looking forward to naming Insect on our Engineered Plague. Now, we know that they have answers for it because we've already seen the Pernicious Deed. But we kind of need to, like, kill their guy and then play this. So it's actually a removal spell and we cast it. Alright, Portent. By playing this one out rather than getting an island, it means that we can choose to shuffle away some of the stuff that we might find. Accumulated Knowledge, Duress, Underground River. I definitely want the AK. Maybe the Duress. I think I'm okay drawing the Duress here. Like, worst case scenario, we can take out this Cabal Therapy. Land our wastes. Cabal Therapy. What are you going to name here? Counterspell, perhaps? Or Psychatog, because it's a thing we can cast next turn, so the reason they didn't cast is turn 1. They named Psychatog. Casting Psychatog on turn 3 is bad, so not really sure about that one myself. So we decided we don't want the card on top already, so let's just... It's the Underground River, so we just get an island. And then we will Duress our opponent. Take this Call of the Herd. Not ideal, but it halves the amount of damage it does. And it means we're not going to have to worry about it for a couple of turns still. And then we're holding up what looks like a pretty obvious counterspell. But our opponent knows that it's not because they saw our hand. Right, we drew a Psychatog. Counterspell. Counterspell is certainly better to hold up than to cast this Psychatog, I believe. I don't really care about this Call of the Herd token. I'll just Ghastly Demise it, I think. Well, this is the only way that we can kill the big worm. I really don't want to point a counterspell at an elephant. Oh, it's a gamekeeper. Well, I will point a counterspell at that one. Thank you very much. Because that immediately turns into a big worm off of this Cabal Therapy. Underground River. I leave like this Underground River so we can represent Counterspell and Smother. We can also cast our Ghastly Demise. Now we could have done this in a way that doesn't telegraph Counterspell. I'm taking 1 life to try and sell the story that we have a Counterspell. Now they're just going to keep running stuff into our Counterspells until something works, probably. Alright, it's an elephant, so that's fine. I think I'm willing to just attack with the Psychatog here. Oh, okay. That changes things, doesn't it? Let's just smother this. We're saving this so we can kill the big worm and then Engineer Plague it, if that is ever a thing that comes up. This game is quite evenly poised. It depends if we can find some reloads like Fact or Fiction or another Accumulated Knowledge or a Gush. Something of that ilk is going to be really key. 3 mana. It's a Recurring Nightmare by any chance? Skeletal Scrying, yeah. So our opponent found a reload before we did. And now I would say they are ahead. We can obviously turn things around. Alright, I like this Duress. You've just reloaded. Let's see what you've reloaded with. Pernicious Deed and Vendetta. This says destroy target non-black creature. So we don't care about that. I will take this Pernicious Deed. Why is Vendetta still in their deck is the question. That is a puzzler. We have 1 creature in our deck and it's black. And our sideboard plan, in terms of threats, is a thing that makes black creatures. Again, we don't want to play this Engineer Plague until we can be guaranteed it's going to sweep up some worms. Eventually our opponent's just going to be able to hard cast these worms. Rampant Growth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 mana away. We do not have the damage to just 1-tap our opponent with a Psychatog. An Impulse. I will cast this Impulse because it could find us something. Okay, I like the Counterspell a lot. I will take Counterspell. So we need to keep these cards in our graveyard. We can't just have a little bit of damage with Tog because we need the cards so the Ghastly Demise works. Treetop Village. That's a thing. A little bit awkward on that front. Okay, we just drew another Smother immediately. That's also fine. Kind of just got things covered for now. And how much damage we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A Gush gets us a lot of the way there. Puts effectively 4 cards in your hand for 1. Gamekeeper. No to you, Gamekeeper. And then they're going to animate their Treetop Village, and we're going to kill it because we want our opponent to have less mana so that we can not have to worry about Symbiotic Worm. Our opponent's worried about that, so they're not even attacking with it. Interesting. Accumulated Knowledge. That's the sort of card I've been looking for. Let's draw some cards straight away. Powder Keg. That's another answer to Symbiotic Worm, so very happy about that one. I'm going to attack here. Alright, they're just scooping it up. I haven't done the math here, actually. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we're... And 14, the target itself. Yeah, we actually had lethal there. If our opponent does nothing. But they can animate the treetop, so... Alright, we've seen a treetop. I don't think that means we want the Tsabo's Web, though. I think we're just fine as we are. Just send it again, hope for the best. They should be boarding out that Vendetta. I'd rather the Swamp was a spell. We do have the counter for the guy at the right time. Okay, I'm not sure if we're supposed to keep this one. The double Swamp is rough. But we go Polluted Delta, get an island on turn 1 probably, so that we can hold up the Counterspell. Maybe we Underground River. The Underground River does allow us to play black spells and blue spells at the same time. Or in the same turn cycle, we can pick either of them. So it allows things like Duress on turn 1 into Counterspell on turn 2. Can we draw a Duress? We did draw a Duress. I haven't seen a Wasteland yet. Am I supposed to play around one? I think I'm just going to play this Polluted Delta. Now, not sandbagging this for something like a Portent can be a big deal. But we'll find out. Rampant Growth. That is, thankfully, not one of the ones I care about the most. It's also, in terms of playing out our lands, we want to get islands in play early doors. Because we want to make sure that we can actually cast things like Gush. So we've got Counterspell for Gamekeeper this turn, if that's what our opponent's got. Oh, it's a Cabal Therapy. Delicious for us. They're going to name Counterspell, I assume. And then just cast Call of the Herd. They name Counterspell. They hit with Counterspell that we clearly were telegraphing. Living Wish. Alright, let's cast an Accumulated Knowledge. This is going to make our opponent think we have some stuff that maybe we don't have. So, like a Daze, maybe? because they know we can't have foil because we don't have the island count. So they chose the Gamekeeper. So they have a Gamekeeper over there. Are we going to die to it? So, who knows? This is bad. Let's play this swamp out. I'm going to play this now on Insect. Maybe it slows their roll. We also don't want to get hit losing both of these to a single Cabal Therapy. I don't know if Symbiotic Worm is like an insect beast or not. I guess we're about to find out because they got the tower as well. They should probably sack to Cabal Therapy, but they have sacked to Cabal Therapy. What would you like to put on the stack? Alright, they milled over a bunch of stuff to find their little guy. I say little guy, it's enormous. They found another Gamekeeper actually, that's not so bad. And they've got another Cabal Therapy, so they're going to take our Engineered Plague or whatever with the second Cabal Therapy. This deck is sweet. I've tried messing around with stuff like this, like a Jund build with Goblin Bombardment, and that didn't feel great. So I assume this is going to take out our Engineered Plague. What do they find this time? Another Gamekeeper. Okay. And I believe there's another Cabal Therapy in their deck, so they might be able to just... I don't really care if they take this Wonder. It's kind of where it belongs. But maybe being able to block and save ourselves 7 damage is pretty good. So they might just take it. Alright, so there's a Symbiotic Worm. It is just a worm. It's not a worm insect. It's got weird little maggots all over it. So they're not maggots, are they? Got lots of legs. Centipedes, maybe. Anyway, we need to draw a Ghastly Demise whilst also putting more cards in our graveyard. So we're going to need to draw something like a Gush, I was going to say. And here we are. We've drawn more Gushes to go with our Gush, but we can't hard cast a Gush because we're 1 mana shy. Okay, this game might be over quite quickly. And we're going to have the perfect even record of 2-2-1 over the course of this league. Could be. Call of the Herd. Sure. That's 10 damage. And that's another Rampant Growth. I quite like our opponent's version of this deck. I might try and put this on the channel if people are interested. Let me know in the comments if you like this deck and you want me to play this Gamekeeper deck. I did see a very similar deck. I think this did well or possibly won a tournament recently. Duress. I guess. Vendetta. Sure. Play on an island. So we're going to take 10 this turn. We need to draw Ghastly Demise to kill this. And then something to kill the elephant. So we need to draw 2 cards. Now we have Gush. And that's pretty good at drawing 2 cards. But the margins... They can also just Call the Herd again. I guess we could draw Ghastly Demise plus Powder Keg. That's probably our plan here. I'm not sure they should be extending into the Powder Keg here. I don't think you need to play that. I can understand playing the second one there, but the third one is a bit much. Smother. Okay. Here's the big plays. Ghastly Demise into Powder Keg. No. We can kill one of these guys and we're just very dead, aren't we? Okay, opponent, you got it. That looks sweet. So that is a 2-2-1 record with Psychatog. Not the best. Now, I did say at the top I've not played this deck before, and it's quite a relatively complex deck with a decent chunk of lines, like when are you actually tapping out for stuff in your portents, how are you sequencing things. We also have some sideboarding, which I found a little bit tricky at times. Like I was boarding out the Force Spikes quite a bit. Maybe that could be wrong, I don't know. What I will say is it did feel like we were struggling sometimes against people who've just resolved stuff in play. Now, a lot of the stuff people are resolving isn't that strong, like creature-wise, so you don't necessarily need to respect it as much. It did feel like sometimes we're in a bit of a panic when something slipped through. It was like, okay, do I have to spend my Counterspell on some guy? Or, you know, can I try and rely on some removal? But I don't have a lot of removal. So I wouldn't mind playing a bit more removal. Now, we've got reasonable amount. We've got like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. And one of those is kind of a sweeper, and Boomerang can be removal. Maybe I would just cut the intuition and play another removal spell. That's what I was doing quite often. Just have a third Smother in there might be alright. Or a single Diabolic Edict is an option as well. But yeah, I like this deck quite a lot. I think there's a lot of play to it, and we only sort of scratch the surface here. And if you'd like to see more of this sort of deck, I do highly recommend looking at the Fluorescent Fungus channel that's run by Neon Mushroom. Has some really good Psychatog stuff. I think there's even a Psychatog playlist, so get stuck in on that one. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and if you want to become a member of my YouTube community, it's only $1 a month, and we'll give you early access to my videos. I keep it low. The idea is lots of people will be like, oh, I'll chip them $1 every month. And hopefully lots of you will do that. All right. Thank you so much for watching and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel. A mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.